My family believed my sister's lie, disowned me, and let me rot. Now they want me to save them from homelessness, so I let them lose everything. Before I get into the meat of this episode, you should understand where I'm coming from. I, a 28-year-old woman, grew up in what I thought was a stable family in an upper middle class suburb outside Chicago. On paper, everything looked perfect. My father was a financial advisor at a respected firm downtown, the kind of man who always had his name attached to reliable and trustworthy. My mother worked part-time in real estate, but her real job was maintaining appearances. She was obsessed with image, community events, charity galas, holiday cards where every smile had to look effortless and flawless. And me? I was the successful daughter. Straight A's without needing to try too hard, captain of the track team in high school, later a strong student in college studying business and finance. I wasn't perfect, but I was dependable, the kind of kid parents brag about at neighborhood gatherings. I had my flaws, of course. I drank a little in high school, snuck out a few times, made dumb teenage decisions I thought were harmless at the time. Nothing extreme, nothing that could ever justify what came later. When I was 10, my parents adopted my younger sister, Lily. She was 3 at the time. I still remember the day they brought her home. Tiny, quiet, wide brown eyes that made everyone soften instantly. My mother cried holding her. My father smiled in a way I rarely saw. And just like that, I wasn't the center of attention anymore. At first, I hated it. Not Lily herself, just what she represented. Suddenly, everything revolved around her. Her first day of preschool, her ballet recitals, her little achievements that got more celebration than anything I had ever done. I told myself I was fine with it, that I was older, that it made sense. But deep down, I felt replaced. As we grew up, I tried to be a good sister. I really did. I walked her to school when she was small. I stood up for her when kids bullied her in elementary school. I even taught her how to defend herself when she came home crying after someone pushed her on the playground. We weren't close, but we weren't strangers either. Just normal siblings, or so I thought. By the time I was in college, I was doing everything right. I had a 3.8 GPA in business administration, played recreational sports, and had internships lined up through my father's connections. I was even being considered for a graduate training program at a major financial firm in Chicago after graduation. My life had a direction, a predictable, comfortable path. Meanwhile, Lily had become a teenager, artistic, dramatic, emotional, the kind of girl who could turn a small inconvenience into a tragedy. She was involved in theater, had a close-knit group of friends, and constantly felt misunderstood. That's how she described herself anyway. Looking back now, there were signs I ignored. Small inconsistencies in her stories. Moments where she would look at me with something I didn't recognize, resentment maybe, or comparison. I didn't think much of it at the time. She was my little sister. I assumed she'd grow out of it. I was wrong. Everything changed on a Tuesday in October during my senior year of college. I had just finished a brutal training session with my baseball fitness group. I played competitively in university, and we had just lost a tough series, so the coach was pushing us harder than usual. My body was exhausted, every muscle sore in that satisfying way athletes know too well. I left the gym, got into my truck, an old Ford my parents had helped me buy, and checked my phone before driving off. 37 missed calls, 54 messages. My stomach dropped immediately. The messages weren't normal. They weren't casual, call me back texts. They were things like, how could you? Don't come home. We know what you did. You're dead to us. For a moment, I thought someone had died. That was the only explanation that made sense. I called my father first. He answered on the second ring. His voice was cold, not angry, worse, controlled. Get home now, he said. Dad, what's going on? Now, he repeated, and hung up. My hands were shaking as I sat in the parking lot. I tried my mother next. No explanation, just crying. My best friend didn't pick up. It was like the entire world had turned against me in a matter of hours. By the time I drove home, I was nauseous with anxiety. I remember gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles went white. When I pulled into the driveway, I saw cars everywhere. My uncle's truck, my grandparents' car, even neighbors I recognized. Something was deeply wrong. Before I could even step out, my uncle rushed me. He grabbed me by the jacket, shoved me against my own truck, and screamed in my face that he was going to end me. I was frozen. Not because I couldn't defend myself, I was strong enough, but because I couldn't understand what was happening. My father pulled him off me and ordered me inside. The moment I walked through the door, I felt it. Silence. The living room was full. My entire extended family was there. My mother was crying on the couch. My grandparents looked like they had aged 10 years overnight. And Lily was sitting next to my grandmother, shaking, sobbing softly. When everyone saw me, the room changed. The air itself felt heavier, like I had walked into a funeral I didn't know I was part of. "What is going on?" I asked. My mother looked at me with something I had never seen before, hate, and then she said it. "Your sister told us everything." My entire body went cold. Lily started crying harder. "She said you've been hurting her," my mother continued, voice breaking, "for years." I couldn't process it. The words didn't make sense. "What?" I whispered. "That's not true. I've never—" But Lily spoke then, between sobs. "You said I should never tell anyone," she cried. "You said you'd hurt me if I did." The room shifted instantly. Every eye turned to me. And in that moment, I realized something terrifying. They already believed her. I wish I could say I handled it with logic, that I stayed calm, collected, and demanded proof like a rational person. But there is nothing rational about being accused of something that erases your entire identity in a single sentence. I stood there in the middle of my family's living room, surrounded by people who had known me my entire life, and I felt like I was disappearing in real time. "This isn't true," I said again, louder this time. My voice cracked halfway through. "I never did anything to her. I swear to you, I never touched her. This is insane." But no one reacted the way I needed them to. No confusion, no hesitation, no questions, only silence and disgust. My mother stood up slowly, like she was forcing herself not to collapse. Her face was red, swollen from crying, but her eyes, those were sharp now, hard. "Don't lie," she said quietly. That hurt more than the shouting. My father stepped forward. He wasn't emotional like my mother. He was controlled, rigid, the way he always was when making financial decisions or dealing with clients. Except now, I realized, I was the problem he was calculating. "This has been going on for years?" he asked Lily. She nodded through tears. "Since I was 10. 10. My mind immediately rejected it. I would have remembered something like that. There would have been signs, moments, anything. But the way she said it, so fragile, so broken, it made other people fill in the blanks for her. My aunt started crying. My grandmother covered her mouth. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." I turned desperately to my sister. "Lily, stop," I said, stepping forward. "Why are you doing this? Tell them the truth." She flinched like I had threatened her. And that's when everything tipped. "She's scared of you," my uncle said suddenly. "No," I snapped. "She's lying." But it didn't matter what I said. The narrative was already locked in. My Uncle Mike lunged at me again, and this time I barely saw it coming. My father and another uncle pulled him back, but the message was clear. Violence was now considered justified. "Enough," my father said sharply. Then he turned to me, and I saw something in his eyes I had never seen before. Disappointment was one thing. This was something else. "This is serious," he said. "If what she's saying is true, then—" "It's not true," I shouted. My voice echoed through the house, but it didn't land anywhere. It just hung there uselessly. Lily started crying harder, burying her face in my grandmother's shoulder. "I didn't want to say anything," she whispered. "I tried to protect you. I tried for years." That sentence sealed it. My mother broke. She looked at me like she didn't recognize me anymore. "How could you do this?" she whispered. And something inside me snapped, not into rage, but into disbelief so deep it felt like shock. They weren't debating anymore. They were mourning me while I was still standing in front of them. "I didn't do anything," I said again, but my voice was smaller now, tired. You know me. My father's jaw tightened. I thought I did, he said. That was worse than any insult. Then came the moment I will never forget. My father stepped forward. He raised his hand and hit me. It wasn't a slap. It was a punch. Fast, heavy, fueled by something I had never seen in him before. I stumbled back, hit the floor, and tasted blood where my lips split against my teeth. For a few seconds, nobody moved. Not even me. Then chaos followed. Get out, my father said. I looked up at him, still trying to process what had just happened. Dad, please, think about this. This doesn't make sense. I said get out, he repeated, voice shaking now. You are not my daughter right now. That sentence landed like a final judgment. My mother was crying again, but she didn't stop him. No one did. Someone had already packed bags. I didn't even see who. Suddenly they were just there. Black trash bags filled with my clothes, my belongings, my life. My father walked over and pulled my wallet from my bag. He took every card with his name on it, every form of financial support, every connection I had through the family. You're done, he said. I stood up slowly, my hands shaking. This is a mistake, I said again, but even I could hear it now, how weak it sounded. My Uncle Mike spat near my feet. Should have gone to prison, he muttered. That was the last thing I heard clearly before I was shoved toward the door. I remember stumbling down the front steps. I remember the cold air hitting my face. I remember the weight of my bag being thrown after me. And then the door closed. Not slammed, closed, like I was already gone from their lives. I sat in the driveway for a long time. I don't know how long. Minutes, hours. Time didn't really exist. My lip was bleeding. My shoulder hurt from where I'd fallen. But none of that mattered. What mattered was the silence. No one came out. No one called my name. No one asked for my side again. That night, I slept in my truck in a parking lot near my old baseball field. I kept replaying everything in my head, trying to find the moment I could fix it, the moment I could explain it better, the moment they would finally see me again. But there wasn't one, because they had already decided who I was. And I wasn't their daughter anymore. The first few days after I was thrown out felt like I was living inside a mistake that someone else would eventually correct. That was the only way my brain could survive it. I kept thinking, they'll calm down, they'll investigate, they'll realize this doesn't make sense. But the calls never came. Instead, what came was silence. Cold, absolute silence from the people who had raised me. I stayed in my truck the first night outside my old college baseball field parking lot. I didn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I replayed my father's punch, my mother's face, Lily crying into my grandmother's shoulder. The worst part wasn't the accusation. It was how fast I had been erased. By morning, my body hurt in places I didn't even remember injuring. My lip was swollen, my shoulder stiff, my head pounding. I tried calling my mother again. It rang once, then voicemail. I tried my father. Do not contact this number again, was the automated reply, followed by a text notification I didn't expect. If you reach out again, we will pursue a restraining order. A restraining order against me. I sat there staring at the screen until it blurred. That was the moment something inside me started to break. Not loudly, not dramatically, quietly, like a structure collapsing one beam at a time. I called my best friend Ryan next. He picked up on the third try. Hey, he said cautiously, what's going on? People are saying insane stuff. What stuff? I asked. A long pause. That you hurt Lily. I closed my eyes. I didn't, I said immediately. You know me. Another pause. I don't know what to believe right now. That sentence hurt worse than my father's punch. By the end of the week, I had nowhere to go. My tuition payment didn't go through. My parents had cut it off completely. I went to the university financial office expecting confusion, maybe a delay. Instead, I got paperwork. No cosigner, no emergency extension, the advisor told me gently. I'm sorry. Sorry. Everyone kept saying that word like it meant something. I dropped to part-time classes to survive, picked up a job at a bar doing security just to afford food. I told myself it was temporary, that things would stabilize, but they didn't. At school, I started noticing things. People who used to sit next to me suddenly didn't. Conversations stopped when I walked into rooms. Girls who used to smile at me in passing now avoided eye contact completely. No one said the word out loud, but I could feel it spreading. Predator. That word doesn't need to be spoken to destroy you. It just needs to exist around you. 2 weeks later, I got a message from my landlord. Rent overdue, then another. Final notice. Then I got home one day to find my apartment lock changed. My stuff was inside. I wasn't. I slept in my truck again. Then I lost the truck. Engine failure. A repair bill I couldn't afford. That was the beginning of the real fall. No home, no car, no family, no financial support, no reputation. Just me, and a name I didn't recognize anymore when people whispered it. I started taking night shifts at the bar full time. Security. Standing at the door, watching people laugh, drink, live lives that still made sense. Sometimes I caught myself staring too long, like I was watching a world I had been removed from. One night, I overheard two guys talking near the entrance. "That's her," one of them said quietly. "The one from campus." The other looked at me, then looked away quickly. I stopped sleeping properly after that. Every sound at night felt like someone coming for me. Every siren made me think it was over. I stopped calling anyone, not because I didn't want help, but because I realized something terrifying. No one was coming, not my parents, not my friends, not the system. I was alone, completely. 3 months after I was kicked out, my body had changed. Not just physically, emotionally. I was always tense, always alert, always waiting for the next thing to collapse. Then came the eviction from the shared apartment I had managed to rent with 2 roommates. I couldn't keep up with rent anymore. They didn't even argue. They just said, "We're sorry, but we can't carry you." There was that word again. Sorry. I started sleeping in my truck again, except now it was worse because I knew what was coming. I knew how fast everything could be taken. At some point, I stopped checking my phone for messages from my family. There were none anyway. Weeks turned into months. I lost weight. I stopped caring how I looked. I started measuring my days by shifts and exhaustion instead of time. Then came the rumors. They spread like wildfire. Someone said I had been arrested. Someone else said I had confessed. None of it was true, but truth didn't matter anymore. One night after work, I was walking to my truck when I noticed a group of guys near the lot. They weren't customers. They were waiting. One of them laughed when he saw me. "There she is," he said. My stomach tightened instantly. I kept walking. "Hey," another called out. "You think people like you just get away with it?" I stopped. Not because I wanted to, because my body already knew this wasn't going to end with words. "You've got the wrong person," I said quietly. The first guy stepped forward. "We know exactly who you are." Then everything happened fast, too fast. I remember the shove, the impact, the ground, the sound of fists, someone yelling something about justice. I remember trying to defend myself, but there were too many of them, and I wasn't thinking like someone who wanted to survive anymore. I was thinking like someone who didn't understand why they were still alive at all. When it ended, I was on the ground, gasping, ribs screaming, vision blurred. They left me there. No one called the police. No one helped. I lay there for a long time before I even moved. And in that moment, something inside me shifted again. Not hope, not rage, something colder, acceptance. Because I finally understood something. My life wasn't being taken away anymore. It had already been taken, and no one had even noticed when it happened. I didn't go to the hospital right away, not because I was strong, because I didn't think it mattered anymore. My ribs felt like they were grinding every time I breathed. My face was swollen, and my vision kept flickering at the edges like my body was trying to shut down and couldn't fully commit. I drove anyway, or what counted as driving. The truck was barely holding together at that point, the steering loose, the engine rattling like it was angry at me for still existing. I remember gripping the wheel with one hand and holding my side with the other, praying I wouldn't hit anything because I honestly didn't care if I did. That scared me the most. Not the pain. The fact that I didn't care. At the hospital, they asked questions. What happened? Who did this? Do you feel safe at home? Home. That word didn't belong to me anymore. I said I fell. They looked at me like they didn't believe it, but no one pushed. No one ever really pushes when you already look like trouble they don't want to deal with. I left with bandages, painkillers, and a bill I couldn't pay. $17,000. I remember staring at it in my truck and laughing once. Just once. Because what else do you do when the system tells you you're injured but still expected to survive financially? I stopped taking the pills after 2 days. Not because I didn't need them, but because I needed food more and I couldn't afford both. So I learned to breathe carefully, to move slowly, to exist in a smaller version of my body. Work didn't stop. It never stops when you're at the bottom. I went back to security shifts as soon as I could stand straight without seeing stars. The bar didn't care. The world doesn't pause for broken people. If anything, it just uses them more quietly. I became very good at my job. Not because I wanted to, because I had nothing else left. I learned how to read rooms, how to spot danger before it formed, how to stand still for hours without showing pain, how to smile when I needed to, how to disappear while still being visible. It was survival, nothing more. But even survival has consequences. The rumors didn't stop. They evolved. Now I wasn't just accused. I was dangerous. That word followed me everywhere. One night, I heard it clearly from a group leaving the bar. Careful, one of them said. That's her. Her. Like I wasn't even a person anymore, just a warning label. I sat in my truck afterward for a long time, hands shaking, staring at the steering wheel. I remember thinking, if this is my life now, how much worse can it actually get? I got my answer a month later. I lost the truck. Engine failure, complete. The mechanic didn't even try to soften it. Not worth fixing, he said. You're better off scrapping it. Better off. Another phrase people use when they want you to disappear politely. So I did. I started sleeping in the back of it while it was still parked, then in the parking lot, then anywhere I wouldn't get moved along. Walmart lots became normal. Gas stations became routine. Bathrooms became survival checkpoints. I stopped looking at mirrors too often. Not because I hated what I saw, because I didn't recognize it anymore. I was losing weight fast, not intentionally. Hunger just becomes background noise after a while. You stop arguing with it. Time stopped feeling linear. Days blended. Nights became something to endure instead of rest in. And still, the worst part wasn't the physical collapse. It was the memory that never left. My family's faces, the moment they believed her. The moment I became something they could hit, throw out, erase. No one ever reached out, not a single call, not even a wrong number. That kind of silence does something to your brain. It stops being absence and starts feeling like confirmation, like maybe you deserved it. That's the dangerous part. Not what people do to you, what your mind starts doing after. I started avoiding places where families gathered, parks, restaurants, grocery stores during certain hours. If I saw a child near me, I would leave. Not because I was guilty, because I was tired of being seen through a lens I couldn't break. I stopped making friends entirely. What was the point? Everyone either believed the rumor or eventually would. It only took one story to erase a lifetime. Then came the night at the college town pub. I was working security again. Late shift, loud crowd, nothing unusual until I saw him. A guy from my past, not a friend, not an enemy, just someone who recognized me from before everything collapsed. I knew it the second our eyes met. That pause, that hesitation, that shift in expression when someone recalculates who you are. He leaned toward his friends. I didn't hear everything at first. Then I caught fragments. Yeah, that's her. Same one. Crazy story. Then laughter. Not loud, not obvious. Worse, intentional. I kept doing my job, because that's what I did now. Ignore, endure, survive. But later, when the shift ended, I walked out alone into the parking lot, and that's when it happened. They were waiting, 3 of them. I should have seen it earlier, but I was tired in a way that makes you slow to notice danger. Hey, one of them said. I stopped walking. Instinct kicked in immediately, not fear exactly, something older, conditioning. You think people forget what you did? Another said. I didn't do anything, I said quietly. That made them laugh. That laugh still haunts me more than the punches. The first hit came from the side. After that, everything became fragments, noise, impact, gravel under my hands. Someone shouting justice like it meant anything in a parking lot at 2 a.m. I fought back. I did. Not because I thought I'd win, but because my body remembered how to survive even when my mind didn't want to anymore. I broke one of their noses. I remember that clearly. Then I went down, hard. The rest is blurred, not unconscious, just overwhelmed. The kind of pain that turns time into static. Eventually they left, and I stayed, on the ground, in the cold, staring at the sky like it owed me an explanation. That night, something inside me stopped resisting, not giving up, just detaching. Because I finally understood no one was coming to fix this. No one was going to realize the truth in time. And if I wanted to survive what came next, I had to stop waiting for my life to be returned to me. The rain started before I reached the bridge. At first, it was just a mist, the kind that doesn't feel real until it's already soaked through your clothes. By the time I parked my car, it had turned into something heavier, steady, cold, indifferent. I remember sitting there for a long time with the engine off, just listening. Wipers clicking against an empty windshield. No messages, no calls, no movement in my phone that meant anything anymore. 3 years had passed since I last heard from my family. 3 years of becoming someone I didn't recognize in order to survive a life I didn't choose. And in that moment, I realized something simple and final. I was done fighting a world that had already decided what I was. I got out of the car. The wind hit me instantly, sharp enough to sting my face. The bridge was old, industrial, overlooking dark water that looked more like absence than a river. I walked slowly, not because I was afraid, because I was tired. Every step felt heavier than the last, like my body knew where I was going before my mind fully accepted it. By the time I reached the middle, my hands were shaking, but not from cold, from still being alive when I didn't feel like I should be. I climbed the railing. The metal was slick. Below me, the water moved without urgency. No judgment, no memory, just motion. I remember thinking, this is the first quiet thing I've seen in years. I don't know how long I stood there. Time stopped being measurable in those moments. It became something emotional instead of physical. Behind me, I heard a voice. Bit cold for a swim, don't you think? I almost fell. My grip tightened instantly on the railing, heart slamming into my ribs like it wanted out. I turned. There was an older man standing a few feet away, maybe late 60s, 70s, raincoat, fishing rod in one hand like he had simply wandered in from another reality, where this was a normal night activity. He didn't look surprised to see me. That was the first strange thing. Go away, I said immediately. My voice cracked halfway through. He didn't move. Can't do that, son, he replied calmly. Son. I almost laughed at that. I said go away. He stepped closer, but not in a threatening way. More like someone approaching a skittish animal that might bolt. If I go away, he said, and you jump, then I carry that with me. That's how it works. I'm not your problem. Already am, he said simply. You're standing where people stand when it becomes someone else's problem. I looked back at the water. My hands were slipping slightly on the railing. I should have told him to leave again. I didn't. Instead, I said the truth. I don't have anything left. He nodded once, like he had heard that sentence 1,000 times before. What's your name? I hesitated. I. Names felt dangerous now, like they belonged to someone I used to be. Jake, I said finally. He nodded again. I'm Frank. Silence stretched between us. Rain filled it. He didn't rush me, didn't lecture me, didn't panic. He just stood there like time wasn't urgent. You want to tell me what got you up there, Jake? I almost said no, but something about the way he asked made it impossible to lie. So I told him. Not everything at first, just pieces. My sister, the accusation, my family, the eviction, the truck, the hospital, the fights, the years of being treated like something that shouldn't exist. And as I spoke, I expected him to react like everyone else had. Shock, doubt, disgust, fear. Instead, he just listened. When I finished, I was shaking harder than before. Frank nodded slowly. That's a heavy load, he said. I laughed once, bitter. Yeah, that's one way to put it. He looked at the water, then back at me. You know what I've learned after a long life? He asked. I didn't answer. People don't stand on railings because they want to die, he said. They stand there because they want the pain to stop. Something in my chest tightened. He took another step closer, slow, deliberate. You're not the first person I've seen up here, he continued, and you won't be the last. But you're the first one tonight I've talked to. Why? I asked quietly. He shrugged. Because I was walking by. That should have sounded meaningless. It didn't. The rain hit harder. My fingers were starting to go numb. Frank adjusted his grip on the fishing rod like it was just another ordinary night. You hungry? He asked. I blinked. What? Food. You eaten today? I didn't answer. That was answer enough. He nodded toward the shore behind him. I've got a place not far, dry clothes, soup. You can leave after that if you still want to. I laughed again, but it broke halfway. You don't even know me. He finally looked directly at me then. I know enough, he said. Either you're telling the truth or you're the best liar I've ever met. Either way, you're not standing there alone. My grip loosened slightly, not because I trusted him, because I was exhausted. I don't know how to go back, I whispered. Frank nodded. Then don't. Just come down first. A long silence. My fingers trembled on the metal. Every instinct I had built over the last years screamed at me not to trust anyone. But there was another instinct underneath it, older, quieter, the one that still remembered what it felt like to be safe. Slowly, I shifted my weight. My foot came off the railing first, then the other. I climbed down. My legs nearly gave out the moment I hit the ground. Frank didn't touch me, didn't grab me, just stepped aside like he trusted me to stay upright on my own. Good, he said simply. We walked back to his car in silence. For the first time in years, I wasn't thinking about survival. Just motion, just breathing, just the fact that for one more night, the story wasn't over yet.